Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Thank you for staying with us. The United States government and Nigeria have entered into a partnership for the fiscal year 2023 Cultural Property Agreement Implementation Grant aimed at protecting NOK heritage and artifacts. The $90,000 grant will be used to support the preservation and safeguarding of NOK artifacts. The deal underscores the U.S. government's desire to preserve Nigeria's cultural heritage, particularly regarding NOK culture. The NOK civilization, known for its distinctive terracotta sculptures, is one of West Africa's oldest cultures, with the artifacts remaining a central component of Nigeria's artistic and historical heritage. Well, joining us now to have a conversation is Yahaya Maikori, entertainment attorney and executive producer of the soon-to-be-released documentary Wheyham, investigating Africa's oldest civilization. It's good to see you on the morning show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Well, the U.S. has definitely played an active role in helping Nigeria recover stolen artifacts, including this repatriation of the Benin bronzes. This latest $90,000 grant signals another step in their commitment to cultural preservation. Well, while financial support like the U.S. Cultural Property Agreement Implementation Grant is helpful, some critics argue that it is a small sum compared to the value of what has been taken from Nigeria over the years. Do you think that Western nations should be doing just more than providing grants? Should there be a stronger commitment to restitution or legal accountability for those institutions that have looted African artifacts in the past?
Yeah, okay, so thanks. That question is a two-edged sword in terms of how you want to look at it. Some would say that, okay, it's a form of paying back for what they've done. You know, some also say, but well, we have not shown the kind of commitment that needs to be shown for us to be able to take back what belongs to us. But you shouldn't also forget that some of these artifacts too were sold by our local leaders here back in the days, particularly even the Benin bronze issue. We know some of them were sold by the chiefs. So it's an arguable issue, and again, it depends on what the context is. But yes, we need to see more investment, more support. And primarily, if you ask me, I think you should start locally, first of all, before we can now ginger the international community to come through for us.
All right, thank you so much for that. So I'd just like to clarify, where are the artifacts now? And when we speak of preservation and safeguarding, what exactly do we mean? Will they be brought to Nigeria to be exhibited? Or can you give us more insight exactly?
Okay, so preservation, there are many things. First of all, there are lots of, we need to first of all know the range of artifacts that were made, or I would say manufactured at that point in time. Some are scattered all over. Even in Nigeria here, in terms of some of the museums, some of them are not in display. Some of them have been lost. There's been lots of looting. Some of them have been looted and sent back. So when you say where are the artifacts, they're everywhere. But most certainly, most of them are not in the NOK area. They have been taken away. Of course, for that to make sense, we need to understand what the National Museums and Monuments Commission Act says about such works. But there are lots of these works that are in private museums. Some are owned privately and sold to museums. Some were donated as legacy projects to some of these museums. So they're all over, they're in private collections. Even in Nigeria here, there are many which are in private collections. So preservation in this case simply means that, first things first, can we take stock of what we have, right? Because they're all over the museum. There's almost no Nigerian museum that does not have NOK art. So let's even start from there. What else? Many have been discovered by people in their private capacities. Even if we cannot retrieve it from them, can we have that documented? Also, can we work with some of those who have it in some of the international museums and private collectors to even know the length and breadth of the amount of work that was made 2,000 to 3,000 years ago? So that's what the whole idea is. Another thing is also to look at how we have a virtual museum. That's part of the part of the grant. The idea is to have some kind of virtual museum that people can experience the whole range of the artworks that we are from the NOK territory, you know, and a virtual experience. So anyway, that's the whole idea of the. So we can start from physically, and then we can do virtually. And people do not have to come all the way to NOK. They can also experience that in an immersive way.
All right, then, and I like the fact that you touched on the fact that these artworks could be anywhere. And when we think about it, there is that delicate balance between preserving ancient heritage and making it accessible to the modern world so that they can continue to learn about the culture from different parts of the globe. But there's still that argument that cultural artifacts, of course, should be preserved in museums and archives. There's also a need to bring them into mainstream consciousness through media, entertainment, and tourism as well. Now, how do you think that Nigeria can best leverage the NOK pieces and even other artifacts for both preservation and cultural tourism as well?
I lost that one.
Did you get my? Okay, let me. Can you hear me now? Can you hear my question?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so I was
yeah.
talking
Hey,
about the delicate balance between preserving ancient heritage and making it accessible to the modern world. Cultural artifacts indeed should be preserved in museums and archives, but there's also a need to bring them into mainstream consciousness, whether it be through media like we're doing now, entertainment, and even tourism. So how do you think that Nigeria can best leverage the NOK civilization pieces and even other artifacts that we've lost over the years for both preservation and cultural tourism?
Okay, so first things first, I think we are lucky to be in a period whereby creativity, culture is becoming a key focus of the administration. And globally too, it forms a significant part of the world economy. And I think going forward, you're going to see how culture is consumed in different ways. Having said about how to consume it, somebody gave an interesting example of what happened with the Swedish, with the Thor. Most of us are aware of the Thor. And Thor, it comes from a historical folk tale of the Swedish people. And he was like, how do we leverage the NOK culture and some of the works they've done to bring it in a way that the younger, the youth can consume it, right? So these are things we need to look at. And we have lots of people from our area who have actually decided to interpret the NOK works in a contemporary form. But having said that, I think that as our culture is being consumed internationally, we now need to make our museum part and parcel of what we are doing in the cultural sphere. Beyond just music, film, we need to make museums part of it. For most Nigerians who travel abroad, I'm sure they take time out to go to the museums. So first of all, the museums in Nigeria, very few people know that they are museums. They are not probably well marketed. So let's start getting people to go into the museums. Let's start making it fashionable to be a fashionable tourism activity. And of course, part of what we are doing as well, especially with the documentary, is to highlight, to use the media platforms that are available now to highlight what this culture was all about. So I think sensitization, advertising, marketing, these are all things that people, both government and private sector, need to get involved to be able to make this a viable part of our culture.
Great. And having said that, of course, you've created a film, or you're in the process of creating a film. Can you give us a little bit more detail about what your film focuses on?
Okay, so the film is called Wheyham. Wheyham simply is our tribal name for Sons of Ham. So just a background. The NOK culture basically covers most of the middle belt of Nigeria, right? But of course, in our investigation and part of the research that was conducted by the Frankfurt University, they found out that most of the works were created within 4 local governments in southern part of Kaduna. And so what they're trying to do is basically see how we can trace back our roots. Let's even see, so we've been to museums over the 3 continents. We have spoken to researchers. We've also spoken with some of the traditional title holders. The idea is basically to have an idea, a sense of how these people lived. What was the culture around it? What caused this tremendous amount of effort in creating these artworks? For example, it's one of the most expansive artworks in the medieval times. And the question was, what was this artwork for? Was it for commerce? Was it for burial rites? Were all the artwork produced in one place, right? Or they had multiple places? Though evidence shows that the clay was from one particular place. We found out that the spread of the artwork, what was going on there, we need to understand that. Some of the questions is that 2,000-3,000 years ago, how were people communicating with each other? What language? What does currency was it if it was for commerce, right? So the whole idea is to go back into time, look at some of the documented some research, look at documented work, hear from word of mouth, to be able to piece together a history of these people, what happened. Obviously, we cannot give all the answers, but it substantially gives people what informed that whole work, that whole culture. If you have taken time out to look at some of the artifacts there was a whole, they were all stylized. They had one unique eye. All the eyes were almond-shaped. All the ears were stylized. I mean, some of the most intricate hair works, you can see them in display. They haven't changed much 2,000-3,000 years ago. I mean, 3,000 years after. So the whole idea is really to see what was driving this whole culture then. But beyond even that, they're one of the first people to start using iron in Africa. So it was a dual legacy culture or civilization, if you want.
Fantastic. And I mean, we look forward to hearing more of this. Thank you so much for this deep dive. And of course, we look forward to seeing that film.